Hello and welcome to episode 22 of On Liberty, coming to you live from the Center for Independent Studies in Sydney, Australia. I'm your host, Salvatore Babonis, and joining me today is Dr. Chin Jin, President of the Federation for a Democratic China. I'll be talking to Dr. Chin Jin about the prospects for democracy in China's future. Dr. Chin Jin, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm very excited. At this moment, the China issue is again to be the focus of the world.
Oh, everyone's talking about China, but I want to start by talking about you. So you're a member of the 1989 generation of students, Chinese students who were here in Australia when Prime Minister Bob Hawke famously offered residence to any students from China who were caught here at the time of the Tiananmen Square Massacre. What brought you to China in 1989? Oh, sorry, to Australia in 1989.
88, yes. 88. I arrived in Australia in November 1988. My thought was very simple. I just want to have a change of my life, and I would like to see something which I do not know. So actually, I had this kind of thinking for a long time. The first time I changed my mind, that was my first trip overseas. That could trace back to 1981. I was traveling overseas. That broadened my mind.
So I'm sorry to interrupt, but very few Chinese would have been traveling overseas in 1981. What brought you traveling?
My occupation. I was seaman. I was a seaman in China, working for the China Ocean Shipping Company, short for COSCO.
Oh,
so
really?
my first trip overseas was in early 1981, traveling from Shanghai to London, to Hamburg, to Rotterdam and Bremerhaven, all these port cities. So that trip broadened my mind, opened my eyes to see the huge difference. And I noticed I was cheated. We were educated that the proletarians should liberate the whole world before liberate themselves. So I noticed I was brainwashed. I have to get rid of that. So when I returned back to Shanghai, I noticed a huge difference. And I noticed, no, not the people in this capitalist country need to be liberated. Actually, we need to be re-liberated. So that started my change of my mind.
So it's funny, most British people think of 1981 England as a country in crisis, that it was the economy was terrible and runaway inflation. But for you, 1981 London was prosperity and freedom.
No, I didn't see the prosperity or poverty of London, but I noticed their lifestyle and the living standard was much higher than that in China. And I was in a city, Shanghai, that was the most cosmopolitan city, the richest city in China. So we lead a life much worse off than these Westerners. So I think we were brainwashed. So I have to change my view to relook at China. So that brought me the first change of my mind.
Right. Now, I want to move forward a little more quickly, but I do have to ask you, I know you came to Australia in 1988 as a student, but everyone's going to want to hear about your first trip to Australia. What were your first impressions of Australia?
My first trip to Australia was in 1982. Let me think. Yes, it was in 1982, and my first trip was from another port city in China to Australia to load iron ore in a port called Dampier in Western Australia. That was a very, very horrible trip. We were the whole ship was nearly sunk into the bottom of the sea. So after that, I think, oh, I must be a man of a fate, because under such enormous danger, we did not sleep all this steel coffin to the very bottom of the sea. We're still alive. So I think I have to treasure my life. Maybe I have some mission in the future. So that was my first trip to Australia.
So as a merchant seaman, you'd been to London, you'd been to Dampier, Western Australia. Why did you choose to come study in Australia?
I think so. After that, I noticed I have a lot of thinking. My thought was, if I want to change China, at that time I have the thought to make a change of China. I believe the political system of China was not correct. It was wrong. So I have to follow the footstep of our forefather. The one I admire at the time was Dr. Sun Yatsen. So in this kind of thinking, I thought maybe we have to travel overseas to build up the forces and bring that back to China, to change China. So because of this kind of thinking, I grabbed the golden opportunity that was offered by Australia. Then Australian government offered Chinese a short-term language training course. So I just picked that up. I just raised the high debts, as high as almost a lifelong wages to repay. But actually, I or most of other Chinese just took that as the opportunity to vote with their feet to leave China. So in 1988, I arrived in Australia. So I immediately felt so excited that I'm freed. I was freed. Yeah.
Now let me say a quick hello to Elizabeth, to Anthony, to Chris. Thanks for watching. We really appreciate it. Chin Jin, you've been working now for Democratic China. As I said in the introduction, you're the president of the Federation for Democratic China. You've been working for Democratic China now for a little more than 30 years. Yes, what are some of the ups and downs in that battle?
At that time, I thought it might be the movement that very soon to be realized, because at that time the situation in China was not bad, especially the political situation in China, and the Chinese people enjoy kind of a freedom because of the political relaxation during this period from 1979 to 1989. So many young people were liberalized to embrace free thinking and democracy. So because of that, the two Chinese democracy movement took place in China. One was in 1986, another one was in 1989. So it looks quite hopeful. So actually, when I was in Australia, I was not joined this movement just because of the 1989 Tiananmen Square Massacre. I was actually looking for or seeking for a political opposition. At that time, well before the Tiananmen Square Massacre, I already found the Overseas Chinese Democracy Organization, which was the Chinese Alliance for Democracy, short for CAD. That was founded by Dr. Wang Bingzhang, who was the first Chinese doctoral student, graduate from Canada. He just gave up his profession to initiate the Overseas Chinese Democracy Movement. So that's the situation at that time. I keep working on that.
How did it feel to you when you saw, as you must have seen the Tiananmen Square Massacre unfold on television? What was it like for you as Chinese but living safely in Sydney?
At that time, all Chinese people were so moved for this tragedy. I remember clearly. The following day, 2 days later, on 6th of June 1989, we had a very big gathering in Sydney Town Hall Square. Lots of prominent figures to attend. Even then, opposition leader Bob Carr was the speaker there, and also other prominent figure. At that time, the incident, the massacre, aroused so many Chinese people to hate the Chinese government, to hate the CCP. So, and also Australian government offered a very benign decision. That was Bob Hawke made the emotional decision to allow all Chinese nationals to stay in Australia, without against their own will, and send them back to China. So at that time we started to have a quite peaceful life in Australia.
Right, but unlike a lot of other immigrants, you haven't really been looking for a peaceful life. What motivates you? Why do you think that there's a chance that we will see a democratic China in your lifetime?
At that time, I thought it might be very quick, because after the Tiananmen Square Massacre, we noticed the communist camp was just destroyed, just destroyed. By the end of 1989, most of Eastern European bloc just dissolved, just fall down one by one. The funny thing was that on the same day, the 4th of June, 1989, Chinese democracy movement was crushed, but Polish achieved their democracy. They had that day. They had the election.
The solidarity movement in
solidarity movement just took over the power. Polish enjoyed the democracy. So within 1 year or two, the whole Eastern European bloc just dissolved, including former Soviet Union. So that gave me a lot of confidence. Maybe China will achieve democracy very soon.
But what about now? It's been 30 years. China seems to be getting no closer to democracy. What gives you any hope now to continue working for a democratic China?
I would say now the situation now is much better than 30 years ago, much closer, because
closer. Most people would say China's become more repressive than ever.
Yes, it is true, but China could overturn immediately, as long as the West democracy awakened. So I would like to say that the realization of Chinese democracy relies on the political change in China. The political change in China relies on the domestic political climate, and also the international grand political climate. So, but the domestic political climate relies on the formation of international political climate. Now it looks like it's forming. It's forming because the United States is awakening, and the United States at last to have a gutful president who would like to contain China. I remember I noticed that some scholars said the U.S. changed its China policy since 2017 from Donald Trump administration. But I noticed that even earlier. I remember that's very interesting. I had a conversation with president of what is his name, Stephen Owens, mm-hmm. the president of the Committee on
Committee for U.S.-China Relations, right?
Relations. I had a closed door meeting with with him, and he tipped me off that if Donald Trump was elected, he may change the U.S.-China relationship. But he reiterated, Donald Trump is totally impossible to be elected. But from that moment, I cherished a high expecting that he must be the winner. But a month later, he was the winner. So the time started from that time. The historical page is turning over the page that we can look at the new prosperity.
Well, then how do you feel about the next U.S. election, which of course is coming up in just a couple months?
In 2 months' time, I cherish big hope that Donald Trump should be elected. If he is elected, I believe his China policy will continue, and China would be easily knocked down. And look at the situation now, the whole world. These days, even today, the Czechs are still in Taiwan. They are just run through the bottom line of the one China policy of Beijing. I think the Czechs are very bold. So if Donald Trump is re-elected, okay, I'm very comfortable to see in the next 4 years' time, Chinese communist regime would be knocked off.
So that's a very strong statement. I mean, you seriously believe that simply by having strong American pressure, I mean, we've seen Donald Trump has had the kind of maximum pressure policy against China, that strong external pressure will bring down the regime in China? I mean, what about all the secret police? What about all the monitoring? I mean, what makes you think that external pressure can possibly undermine internal politics in China?
Only the external pressure could bring the internal pressure to come up. Only the policy, U.S. policy, the tough policy against the CCP could cause the China's economy just slip down or just slip over the cliff, and that will cause the social unrest, and the social unrest could cause the inter-party tussles. So that would be the political opportunity. Now these days we can see the Mongolians are fighting for their language, to preserve their language and culture. I think that's the stupidity of Chinese top leader Xi Jinping to make such a blunder. I think he's just cornered at the moment. Right. So the chances are very, very high for us.
So not just Mongolians, but also, of course, Uyghurs, Tibetans. What's your take, and we're going to go to viewer questions in a minute, but I have one final question for you, which is, what is your take of the internal situation in China? You have, of course, a much closer view of what's going on inside China. Whether we talk about the Uyghur unrest, Tibetan unrest, Falun Gong, the situation in Hong Kong, even the tensions with Taiwan, the so-called 5 poisons that you've written about in your own work, do those cause very much internal trouble in China, or really does Xi Jinping have that all under control?
Xi Jinping is now all under his control. Yes, it's true, but all the situation could turn off, just change all of a sudden, as long as the external pressure is enough. So for the past 30 years, since 1989 Tiananmen Square, there was almost no external pressure onto the Chinese government. It was the huge mistake of former U.S. administrations. Look at the senior Bush, Bill Clinton, and Barack Obama. They all just try to have a benign relationship with CCP, naively believe that offered enough chance to CCP will change it. Now, the cruel reality is China is not going to change. Only you are going to fight against the CCP. Now, Donald Trump knows that. He's doing that. So I know many people dislike him, and I noticed that he's not doing a good job. He's a big mouth, and he's a losing cannon, lack of correct political concept. But he rejected political correctness. He's bold, he's decisive, and he's committed. So all the changes, U.S.-China policy change was under his administration, and I could see the current Secretary of State is really doing a good job. He's doing the knitting to get to form an alliance to stand up against the CCP. Might be the work behind the scene for the Czechs to openly visit Taiwan. So everything is going on. I'm happy to see that. So that's the sign of in Chinese language we say 天时地利人和, heaven and earth and human, all these things very, very crucial. In English term, in English language context, people will say political opportunity. But in Chinese language, we will say 天时地利人和, heaven. The heaven that means mandate of heaven or God's will, and the time and the timing, time and the tide is on our way, and also the earth, the earth. We say 地利, that the earth. Also, we say how can you say that? It's just a favorable geographical advantage. And mostly important is human factors. So now human factors, so very important. Xi Jinping and Donald Trump. These two people are fighting each other. That's the thing.
So speaking of human factors, we are going to go to viewer questions in just a moment.
Yeah.
First, let me just ask everyone, please, if you're enjoying the video, hit the thumbs up. We have 41 people watching at this very moment, but only 9 people have liked the video. If you like the video, please like the video. Also subscribe to the CIS YouTube channel. We also would love to have you as a member. Now, if you're already a member, thank you very much. Please consider upgrading. As you know, if you go up from the $40 to the $250 level, I will personally send you a signed copy of Liberty and Liberalism, the first work of classical liberalism published in Australia. But if you're not a member, at $40, you can become a member of the CIS. Of course, you get notifications of these events. And probably most importantly, most importantly for me, you'll show your support for this program. It takes a lot of effort and staff time to make this program happen. If we get members coming in through the program, that really does reinforce the message to the Center for Independent Studies that it's worthwhile for the organization to be making this platform possible for us and for you, the members and viewers who tune in. So thanks everyone for your support, but please do either become a member, consider a contribution. There should be a support link coming up in the comments. We'd love to have your support. Now, Chin Jin, we already have a whole series of questions coming in. We're going to get to all of them if we can, but there's one that I was unaware of. I know you follow Chinese politics so closely. You'll be able to answer this question. Chris asks, how do you interpret the recent arrest of the Shanghai police chief? Now, I was unaware of this. Can you give us some background on that?
Shanghai police chief. I think this is I watch closely about China's politics. So someone called me, give me a name, Australian writer and a China watcher. But I do not pay close attention to these tiny issues. This is only the internal conflict within the party. It won't result, just have impact for the whole political change in China. So I'm sorry. So for this small issue is really not that important, which could impact the big picture, the whole situation.
So you view that just as part of local party struggles, not as part of a larger.
No.
Right. Now, Mike wants to know at a big picture level, do you think Xi Jinping is behaving so aggressively because he feels under pressure, both internal and external pressure?
I would say Xi Jinping is a very, very funny guy. So I never knew Xi Jinping before he was chosen as the next top leader after Hu Jintao. But I remember Xi Jinping one thing. His first debut in Mexico in 2009. He made a very, very stupid remarks. He said, some foreigners who are well-fed, who have nothing to do, always try to find faults with our domestic issues. First, China does not export revolution. Second, China does not export poverty and hunger. And the third, we Chinese do not try to trouble you. So what else can you say? So from that moment, I noticed that he's the guy. He would bring China really, really back to Mao Zedong's period. Under his reign or political ruling, there would be no chance for China to have a top-down political reform. But actually, I would say Xi Jinping is a very, very tough guy. He could, for his own personal issue, to break the law, break the rule of Hong Kong, break the one country, two system. He just sent his agents, sneak into Hong Kong and to kidnap all these bookstore workers back to China, just for someone was going to run a book about his personal affairs. So he's so
on that, I mean, Christopher asks, and I'm going to pick up exactly that point. Do you think that the arrogance of the current Communist Party regime in China is only a thin disguise for its underlying fear and insecurity? Do you think Xi Jinping actually feels insecure in his position?
It was rumored that he had escaped so many assassinations, but it can't be proved. But I think Xi Jinping, if you check his personality, he's a quite bold man. He just followed his father. His father was quite bold. His father used to criticize all the senior leaders except Deng Xiaoping when they had the private meeting to push Hu Yaobang out of office. So Xi Jinping I think he's a guy. He's very bold. He's very bold, reckless. So he doesn't have to think about the outcome, the bad outcome. So these days, you look at the situation now in China. He had the skirmish with India. And he's trying to militarily attack Taiwan. He pretends to do that, and also he caused another problem in Mongolia. To be honest, he should at this time he should be to show his not showing his strength. Should try to buy the time to show his weakness, even his feigned weakness. But he didn't. He just keep his way. So that's why I think a human factor is very important to change the political situation. Because his boldness, his recklessness, he could anger Donald Trump. He could anger the whole world. That could bring the catastrophe attack from outside. That could also bring the domestic political change. So for Xi Jinping, I'm very happy to see he's still in the position because he's the only one to bring the CCP to demise.
Now, Richard has a question I know will be very dear to your heart. It's about Dr. Sun Yatsen, the founder of modern republic in China. He asked, did Dr. Sun get his political vision of democracy from studying at Hong Kong Baptist Medical College, or from Confucianism in his native Guangdong, or I might add, from his time spent in Hawaii?
Yeah. So what's the
Where do
question?
where do you think his vision came from, his attachment to democracy?
I think his vision came from his study of out of China. That's very, very, very important. To me, how can I get this vision, have this kind of thought? I started to learn English when I was a young boy, and I learned English literature, American literature, so I can absorb so many ideas. So I think Dr. Sun Yatsen, very important for Dr. Sun Yatsen, he absorbed these thoughts overseas, not in China, but he had a very good good command of the Chinese language and the Chinese culture, and he's a very courageous man. He has his determined decision in his mind. He was trying to achieve that, so he spent his the whole life to achieve that. But anyhow, he was very lucky. He realized his dream. His dream in 1911. Eventually, this revolution overthrew the Qing dynasty. So Dr. Sun Yatsen was really great model for us to follow.
So speaking of contacts with the West, Christopher says the former Soviet Union always feared ideological contamination through contact with the West. Yet China has sent, millions of students overseas to study in the West. Why isn't China, today's, communist China, fearful of contacts with the West?
Fearful contact.
Why is it allowed so much contact back and forth when the Soviet Union, for example, prohibited people from going to the West?
I think we have to have a close look at the Chinese leaders' thinking inside. They use their knowledge or political wisdom to fool the whole world, and the West democracy had been demonstrated to be easily to be fooled. So that's why the Chinese government used his technology. They use the Chinese ancient political wisdom. We call it the 36 stratagems. They use that to tackle with the Chinese with foreigners. Eventually, maybe 5 years or 6 years ago, an American scholar, Michael Pillsbury, noticed that. He wrote a book, 100-Year Marathon. He reviews that Chinese government just make a good use to fool the West democracy, especially the United States, to fool the United States to gain for his own gain. So and also look at this situation. The Great Firewall effectively helped the Chinese government to block the flow of information. The people inside China could not accept or receive the information from outside China. They could only be brainwashed, and they use the tools and use their strong economic strength to realize that. So that's why they send all these Chinese students overseas. And look at these students. Very, very rarely you could find someone who would like to pick up the Western ideas. They just still thinking of China, still to demonstrate their patriotism, the nationalism works very, very good. So many years ago, when I noticed the Confucius College institutes, I immediately pointed out, it's a kind of a political ideology of the Chinese government. Chinese government's ideology, the transfusion outside. But Western democracy had this kind of thinking. This is okay. That's good. You spend pay a huge lot of money to build the buildings to erect this kind of institute. Actually, this is for for work for the Chinese government to convey that idea to numb the Westerners. The Westerners have no idea to realize that because they couldn't see the real color of Chinese communist regime.
Now, Elizabeth wants to bring this home to Australia. She asks, China knows that Australia doesn't just do what the United States tells it to do, but of course they use that rhetoric all the time, that Australia is merely the quote-unquote lapdog of the United States. Does Australia have to fear severe retaliation from China? And in particular, does Australia or anyone else have to fear Chinese direct military intervention?
No, I don't think so. I don't think China would have this direct military attack on Australia. It's really not possible. And I think even though China is eager to show his or flexing his muscles, but his military mighty still out of reach to the United States. The United States is doing still control the whole world. I would mention that the race between turtle. Am I right to using this word? That means in Chinese we call it turtle and hare.
Right. The turtle and hare, yeah.
Turtle and hare, yeah. So United States is a hare. West democracy is hare. But West democracy could easily so arrogant to sleep, to fall asleep. But communist China is just turtle, just keep moving forward. As long as the West democracy could wake up, China has no chance to contain, to defeat the West democracy. So I don't think the Chinese military attack could launch into the soil of Australia. No, it's impossible. It's impossible. Don't have to worry about that.
Now, we only have a couple minutes left, so we have a ton of questions still to get to. So let me just try to ask some rapid fire questions, and if you can give us quick answers as much as possible, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Anthony says that democracy is built on a civil society that is independent from both government and family, something in between. Does China have a civil society like that could form the foundation for a successful democracy?
Not at all. It's entirely impossible under the tight control of the Chinese communist regime. It's impossible. I think this is a kind of a Western ideas, civil society. Yes, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, Jimmy Carter wanted to do that. The Chinese government was so smart to overcome that. Just let you waste all your money, all of your money, just let you get nowhere. The only thing we can have China to achieve that is get rid of the Chinese communist regime. Who can get rid of that? Not the Chinese people. Right. Chinese people is powerless to achieve that. Only the awakening of the West democracies, awakening of the United States, awakening of the White House. They know how to demolish this regime. So the whole world have to consider this issue. I would like to raise. What is that? So the whole world should help to consider the reshape of China without the CCP. The whole world should have to create a better world without a CCP. This is the task I wish we Chinese people could follow. And also, I would say, Pompeo said the United States had marginalized the Chinese people for so long. So now, United States need to empower Chinese people. So I would like to say another word to the Australian government. Scott Morrison and Maurice Payne, you people have done a very good job to stand steadfast with the United States to contain this monster. Keep doing this good work and help the Chinese people to establish a democracy in China. If China become a democracy, the whole world would be much better off, and Australia will be benefited.
That's very inspiring. We have to rush through a final couple questions. So quick answers if you can. Mei Ping Mango wants to ask, this is a fascinating question. Is the return to Mao-style hard-line authoritarianism, or I would even say totalitarianism, all due to Xi Jinping, or was it inevitable under CCP rule? Did Xi Jinping bring back totalitarianism, or did the party bring back totalitarianism?
I think that Xi Jinping, the party, I don't think the party. The party, Xi Jinping is a very effectively control the whole party. Control the whole party. So Xi Jinping is doing his work to bring China back to Mao Zedong's period. He's running very fast. And a lot of people considering or have the speculation that the private meetings in Beidaihe would solve this problem. But eventually, it turned out that Xi Jinping still hold the position. He's still very, very powerful. Okay, this is not a bad thing. Xi Jinping is in power. What he could do just to bring the CCP to demise. So he's quite identical to the last emperor of Ming Dynasty. So yesterday I wrote an article. I could see Xi Jinping is running very fast to a tree to commit suicide.
And final question, how should Australia, we have to end here, so we really love to have your thoughts. How should Australia be responding to all of this pressure it's currently receiving from China about trade sanctions, about beef, barley, wine? What should Australia be doing in return?
It's no good for Australia to have exchange of words, war of words, just argue with China. Useless. The good thing to do is do something else. Don't have to concentrate on that. Say example, maybe 2 months ago, I sent a letter to the committee concerned. I said this is not my submission. I just wanted to be a private letter, and let the Prime Minister office and the Foreign Minister office to read that. Australia could do another thing, very simple, to take the lead, to lift the relationship with Taiwan. That could badly hit the bottom line of the Chinese government. Oh. If you do that, Chinese government would return back to speak softly to you how to deal with this problem. Please don't do that, okay. And we could give you something. So try not to follow the Chinese CCP's orders. Just do your own.
I have one absolutely final question for you, and this is it. No more after this.
Go on.
Pepe wants to know, can you recommend a favorite book on Chinese history?
On Chinese history?
Or on China. What's your favorite book in English on China?
I would like to say, the four classical novels, literatures, they are very, very good. One is called the Romance of Three States Kingdom, and also the West to the
Journey to the West.
Yeah, I absorbed so many wisdom from there, and also absorbed. Also, I would like to mention another thing. Mm-hmm. China is a country with a historic with these three things as the core of Chinese tradition and culture: Taoism, Confucius, and Buddhism. Mm-hmm. And I think Taoism and Buddhism are really, really good. You can learn a lot of things for that. You could read Lao Tzu and read Zen Master. They could give you a lot of wisdom. So I would like to give you this word, okay, I can't remember. This is very interesting. I learned from Zen Master. See the invisible, listen to the inaudible, know the unknown, unknowing. That's the real truth. I learned that 20 years ago. Every year I review this movie. Every time when I review this movie, always I get something new to give me the inspiration.
We'll have to leave it there. Dr. Chin Jin, President of the Federation for Democratic China, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Salvatore. Thank you for all you listen.
Thanks also to our producer, Emily Holmes, for keeping us on the air, executive producer Max Hawk Weaver. The director of the Center for Independent Studies is Tom Switzer. And next week, we have the... what's the proper epithet for him? We have the amazing Greg Lindsay, the founder of the Center for Independent Studies, who will be coming to talk to us about the early history of the CIS. Please come back and join us for a very special On Liberty next week. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you then.